Imagine discovering that the person you trusted most in the world, your own mother, had built your entire life on a web of lies. What begins as a tale of love and sacrifice takes a dark turn into deception, abuse, and murder. This is the chilling story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a young woman trapped in a twisted betrayal that shattered her innocence and led to a crime that shocked the world. And just when you think the story is over, an unexpected new chapter begins. Stay tuned as we unravel the devastating truth behind one of the most haunting cases in modern history. To the outside world, Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose Blanchard were the epitome of a devoted mother-daughter duo. Dee Dee was hailed as a tireless caregiver, dedicating her life to her frail daughter. With a calm smile and a nurturing presence, Dee Dee became a pillar of her community, garnering admiration for her unwavering devotion. Local charities, neighbors, and even national organizations celebrated her as a hero who had sacrificed everything for Gypsy's well-being. Gypsy, by contrast, embodied vulnerability and courage. Confined to a wheelchair, she was soft-spoken, small-framed, and seemingly weighed down by a life of endless medical battles. Dee Dee claimed Gypsy suffered from a long list of debilitating conditions, including leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and epilepsy. Despite these challenges, Gypsy maintained a childlike optimism that endeared her to everyone who met her. Her bravery, paired with Dee Dee's motherly strength, created a story that touched hearts everywhere. By 2005, after Hurricane Katrina displaced them to Missouri, their struggles appeared insurmountable, yet they radiated resilience. Generosity poured in from charities that offered free trips, housing, and donations, eager to support the family's inspiring journey. Together, Dee Dee and Gypsy projected a picture-perfect image, a team who triumphed over adversity through love, faith, and perseverance. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, a much darker reality was concealed. Dee Dee's control over Gypsy's life was absolute. Every aspect, from what Gypsy ate to how she dressed, was dictated by her mother's unyielding authority. Gypsy's world was tightly managed, with Dee Dee monitoring her every move under the guise of protection. Gypsy rarely left Dee Dee's side, her existence confined to a cocoon of fabricated illness and dependency. Even Gypsy's identity wasn't her own. Dee Dee perpetuated an elaborate web of lies to ensure Gypsy remained under her thumb. Doctors were manipulated into believing false medical histories, while unnecessary treatments were conducted to maintain the illusion. Dee Dee shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the effects of chemotherapy, controlled her diet to keep her frail, and spoke on her behalf during appointments. Gypsy grew up believing she was gravely ill, with Dee Dee reinforcing that she wouldn't survive without constant care. This meticulous orchestration solidified Dee Dee's role as a saintly protector in the eyes of the community. Her devotion seemed unquestionable, her intentions pure. As a result, no one thought to challenge the narrative. Why would they? Dee Dee's actions appeared motivated by love, and Gypsy seemed content in her mother's care. But as time would reveal, even the most carefully constructed illusions can't last forever. The cracks in Dee Dee's elaborate facade were beginning to form, and Gypsy's world was poised to unravel in ways no one could have imagined. The Blanchard family's perfect image, built on a foundation of sympathy and lies, began to show subtle but growing cracks. Dee Dee's claims about Gypsy's illnesses were as vast as they were intricate. She told anyone who would listen that Gypsy suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and even developmental delays that left her with the mental capacity of a young child. These conditions, along with many others, were meticulously documented in an exhaustive medical history Dee Dee crafted with chilling precision. Dee Dee's manipulative prowess was extraordinary. She shuffled Gypsy from one doctor to another, skillfully recounting a history of symptoms that appeared undeniable. She pushed for tests, treatments, and surgeries, presenting herself as a desperate mother seeking to prolong her daughter's fragile life. Overwhelmed by Dee Dee's detailed accounts and seemingly convincing evidence, most medical professionals complied. Unnecessary procedures became routine, and Gypsy was prescribed an array of medications to treat ailments she didn't have. Dee Dee even doctored records to suggest that Gypsy's biological father was a negligent figure who refused to care for his sick child, solidifying her image as a single mother, heroically fighting the odds. Yet amidst the web of lies, there were occasional moments of doubt. Some doctors questioned the necessity of certain treatments or the inconsistencies in Gypsy's medical history. One neurologist suspected Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a condition where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in a dependent for attention or sympathy. However, these doubts were fleeting, often silenced by Dee Dee's charm and insistence. Her ability to turn scrutiny into sympathy was unparalleled. For years, Gypsy remained unaware of the truth, trusting her mother's every word. She believed her life was as fragile as Dee Dee claimed, her survival depended on her mother's care. But as Gypsy grew older, the cracks in her mother's narrative became harder to ignore. She began noticing inconsistencies, small things that planted seeds of doubt in her mind. For example, her body didn't feel as weak as Dee Dee suggested, and her supposed illnesses didn't always align with what she overheard during medical appointments. The turning point came when Gypsy discovered her ability to walk. One day, while Dee Dee wasn't looking, she tentatively pushed herself out of her wheelchair and stood. Her legs, long presumed useless, held her weight. Though initially terrified, the realization sparked a cascade of questions. If her legs weren't as weak as Dee Dee claimed, what else wasn't true? Gypsy began testing her independence in secret, taking cautious steps when Dee Dee wasn't around and keeping her newfound ability hidden. Around 2012, as Gypsy entered her late teens, she began noticing inconsistencies in her mother's stories and secretly accessing the internet at night. Dee Dee had strictly monitored Gypsy's interactions, ensuring she remained isolated, but an old laptop became Gypsy's secret lifeline. Late at night, while Dee Dee slept, Gypsy would explore social media and chat rooms, reveling in a freedom she had never known. The more she interacted with others online, the more aware she became of her own desires for independence and a life beyond her mother's control. In one of these chat rooms, Gypsy met Nicholas Gaudijon, a young man who seemed to understand her in a way no one else did. Their connection was immediate, fueled by Gypsy's desperation for companionship and Nicholas's eagerness to be her confidant. Over time, their relationship grew intense. They exchanged messages, confessions, and even plans for a future together. For Gypsy, Nicholas represented a chance to escape, a glimpse of a life free from Dee Dee's suffocating grip. As their bond deepened, Nicholas introduced Gypsy to a darker side of himself. He revealed his fascination with violence and BDSM, sharing fantasies that both intrigued and unnerved her. Despite her discomfort, Gypsy clung to Nicholas, seeing him as her only means of freedom. She began sharing more about her life, confessing the extent of Dee Dee's control and the lies she had been forced to live. Nicholas's anger on her behalf only solidified her trust in him. Together, they began to imagine a way out, their conversations turning from dreams of escape to something far more dangerous. Gypsy's awakening was a slow but inevitable process. With each secret step she took, literally and metaphorically, she grew bolder. She started experimenting with makeup and clothes, trying to look older than the childlike persona Dee Dee had imposed on her. She began fantasizing about a life where she could walk freely, make her own decisions, and be loved for who she truly was. But with every small act of rebellion, the stakes grew higher. Gypsy knew that if Dee Dee ever discovered her secrets, the consequences would be severe. The cracks in the foundation of Dee Dee's control were now undeniable. Gypsy's discovery of her own strength, combined with her secret relationship with Nicholas, fueled her determination to break free. Yet the path to freedom seemed impossibly narrow, and the weight of Dee Dee's manipulation loomed over her. Gypsy was at a crossroads, torn between the fear of staying and the danger of leaving. And as her relationship with Nicholas intensified, the plan they began to hatch would soon shatter the illusion Dee Dee had spent years creating. If you've made it this far into the story, type potato in the comments. Let's confuse everyone else who didn't. The illusion of Gypsy Rose Blanchard's life had finally crumbled, leaving her with the bitter truth of years spent as a prisoner under her mother's manipulation. While her discovery of the lies was liberating, it also placed her in an impossible position. Gypsy was terrified of confronting Dee Dee directly, knowing her mother's anger could spiral into punishment or retaliation. With each passing day, the walls of her life seemed to close in further, and desperation began to consume her. Gypsy longed for freedom, But Dee Dee's control felt insurmountable until Nicholas Godejohn became her lifeline. By the spring of 2015, Gypsy's online relationship with Nicholas Godejohn had reached a critical point, and their discussions took a darker turn. Nicholas's protective nature and willingness to stand up for her contrasted starkly with Dee Dee's controlling grip. Their late-night conversations became a refuge for Gypsy, a place where she could dream of a life unencumbered by deceit and isolation. Over time, those dreams turned into plans. Gypsy confided everything to Nicholas, the lies, the abuse, and her growing despair. Nicholas, eager to prove his devotion, offered a chilling solution. Dee Dee had to be removed from the equation. Initially hesitant, Gypsy grappled with the morality of what they were discussing. She knew that planning Dee Dee's murder was unthinkable, but the alternative, remaining trapped in her mother's web, seemed equally unbearable. Nicholas reassured her, painting himself as her knight in shining armor, ready to rescue her from her living nightmare. He told her it was the only way she could ever be free. Slowly, Gypsy began to see the plan as her only chance for survival. In the weeks leading up to the crime, Gypsy and Nicholas meticulously planned their next steps. Nicholas, who lived in Wisconsin, would travel to Springfield, Missouri, where the Blanchards lived. He would wait outside the house until Dee Dee was asleep. Gypsy would leave the front door unlocked, signaling to Nicholas that it was time. She promised to provide gloves and a knife to avoid leaving evidence. The details were carefully coordinated, and with each discussion, Gypsy's dread grew. She tried to reassure herself that this was the only way, clinging to Nicholas's promises that everything would be okay. The night of the murder arrived, heavy with anticipation. Gypsy and Dee Dee had spent the evening as they often did, watching TV together in their small home. Gypsy was unusually quiet, her mind racing with what was to come. Dee Dee, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, eventually drifted off to sleep in her bedroom. Gypsy sent Nicholas a text. "The door is open." Nicholas arrived in the dead of night, dressed in dark clothing and carrying the knife Gypsy had provided. Gypsy waited in the bathroom, her hands trembling and tears streaming down her face. She covered her ears, unable to bear the thought of what was about to happen. In the dimly lit house, Nicholas made his way to Dee Dee's room, where she lay snoring softly. The next moments were a whirlwind of violence and chaos. Dee Dee awoke to the sight of Nicholas looming over her, knife in hand. She screamed, but her cries were quickly silenced as Nicholas struck. The attack was brutal, the room filling with the sounds of struggle and Dee Dee's desperate pleas. Gypsy stayed frozen in the bathroom, her heart pounding as she tried to block out the horrific noises. When silence finally fell, Nicholas emerged, his hands and clothes stained with blood. Gypsy's emotions overwhelmed her. Guilt, fear, and a strange, unexpected sense of relief all collided within her. The mother who had controlled every aspect of her life was gone, but the cost of her freedom felt unbearably high. Nicholas reassured her that everything would be fine, but Gypsy couldn't shake the gravity of what they had done. The pair quickly set about cleaning up the scene. They attempted to remove evidence, wiping down surfaces and discarding the gloves and knife. In a panic, they decided to flee. Gypsy packed a few belongings, and they left the house, abandoning the carefully constructed image of the perfect family. Their escape was impulsive and poorly planned. The pair boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Wisconsin, believing they could vanish into anonymity. Along the way, Gypsy vacillated between moments of calm and utter panic. She was finally free from Dee Dee, but the reality of what she and Nicholas had done loomed over her. Meanwhile, Nicholas seemed unbothered, focused only on his role as Gypsy's savior. Back in Missouri, the discovery of Dee Dee Blanchard's lifeless body was discovered on June 14, 2015, in her small Missouri home. The grisly scene stunned the community, which had always seen Dee Dee as a devoted mother and a symbol of resilience. Her neighbors had grown concerned after noticing the house eerily quiet and a troubling Facebook post from Dee Dee's account that read, "That bee is dead." Fearing the worst, they called the police, who arrived to find Dee Dee's bedroom door locked. When they broke it down, they were met with a horrifying sight: Dee Dee's body lying in a pool of blood, bearing multiple stab wounds. The news spread quickly, and the community's shock was palpable. For years, Dee Dee had been the heart of their neighborhood, a mother tirelessly caring for her ailing daughter. But as the details of the crime began to emerge, the narrative that had defined their lives unraveled in ways no one could have imagined. Where was Gypsy? How had someone gotten past Dee Dee's vigilant watch? Questions swirled as investigators dug deeper into the case. The investigation gained traction when the Facebook post, seemingly taunting and brazen, was traced to Nicholas Godejohn's address in Wisconsin. Within days, authorities located Gypsy and Nicholas, who were found together in Nicholas's home. To everyone's astonishment, Gypsy was not wheelchair-bound, as the world had believed for years. She walked into custody unaided, leaving onlookers stunned. The arrest marked the beginning of a chilling revelation that would captivate the nation. As the investigation unfolded, the carefully constructed facade of Dee Dee's life began to crumble. Investigators uncovered a history of manipulation, fraud, and abuse that painted Dee Dee as far more sinister than the devoted mother she had appeared to be. Records revealed that Dee Dee had fabricated Gypsy's medical conditions for years, deceiving doctors, charities, and even her own daughter. Gypsy's supposed illnesses were exposed as lies. She could walk, she did not have cancer, and her developmental delays were entirely fabricated. The community, once sympathetic to Dee Dee, turned its focus to Gypsy. Initially, her involvement in the murder painted her as a cold-blooded accomplice, but the truth of her life under Dee Dee's control quickly emerged. Gypsy was a victim of long-term psychological and emotional abuse, trapped in a life of lies she had no power to escape. Her testimony revealed the extent of Dee Dee's manipulation, from shaving Gypsy's head to make her appear like a chemotherapy patient to isolating her from the outside world. As the truth came to light, public perception shifted dramatically. Gypsy became a symbol of both victimhood and resilience, a young woman who had been pushed to her breaking point by years of abuse. While some questioned her actions and her role in planning the murder, many empathized with her plight, understanding that her desperation had left her with no other way out. The story of Dee Dee and Gypsy Blanchard revealed a tragic and haunting truth. Behind the illusion of a perfect family lay secrets too dark to comprehend. Interviews with neighbors, friends, and former supporters revealed a mix of disbelief and betrayal as the truth about Dee Dee's manipulations came to light. Gypsy's emotional confession during police interrogations painted a heartbreaking picture of her desperation. Tearfully, she recounted the years of abuse, isolation, and control she had endured under Dee Dee's hand. While Gypsy admitted her role in planning the murder, she emphasized her belief that it was the only way to escape her mother's suffocating grip. Nicholas, by contrast, offered chillingly detached confessions, describing the crime with disturbing calm and a fixation on his perceived role as Gypsy's savior. The courtroom drama that followed was as complex as the case itself. Gypsy's defense argued that she was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, having been coerced into a life of lies and subjected to years of psychological abuse. Expert witnesses testified to the trauma Gypsy endured, framing her actions as those of a desperate young woman pushed beyond her limits. In the end, Gypsy accepted a plea deal, avoiding trial and receiving a 10-year prison sentence for second-degree murder. Nicholas's trial was starkly different. Prosecutors painted him as a willing and calculated participant in Dee Dee's brutal killing. The defense attempted to argue diminished capacity due to Nicholas's autism and mental health issues, but the jury remained unconvinced. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The case ignited heated debates about justice, abuse, and accountability. Gypsy's relatively lenient sentence reflected the understanding of her victimhood, but Nicholas's harsher punishment underscored the gravity of the crime. The Blanchard case remains a haunting reminder of how far the consequences of manipulation and desperation can reach. If you've made it this far into the story, type potato in the comments. Let's confuse everyone else who didn't. After years of living under her mother's oppressive control and enduring the psychological scars of her tumultuous past, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is beginning a new chapter in her life. Since her incarceration, Gypsy has demonstrated resilience and a determination to move forward. Her time in prison has been marked by efforts to rehabilitate herself, both mentally and emotionally. She has participated in educational programs, therapy sessions, and support groups, seeking to understand the trauma she endured and the choices she made. By all accounts, Gypsy has used her time to reflect, grow, and prepare for the life she hopes to build upon her release. A significant milestone in Gypsy's journey toward normalcy came with her marriage. In an unexpected turn of events, she found love while still behind bars. Her husband, a man she met through a pen pal program, has been described as supportive and understanding of her past. The couple exchanged vows in a private ceremony, symbolizing a fresh start and a commitment to a future free from the shadows of her childhood. More recently, in 2022, Gypsy's story took another surprising turn with the birth of her child. For someone who had been denied independence and autonomy for so long, building her own family represents a powerful step toward reclaiming her identity and shaping her life on her own terms. The public's reaction to Gypsy's new life has been mixed. Many continue to empathize with her plight, recognizing her as a victim of one of the most extreme cases of abuse and manipulation ever brought to light. For these supporters, her marriage and motherhood are seen as signs of redemption and resilience, a testament to her ability to move forward despite the odds. However, not everyone views Gypsy's new chapter so favorably. Critics argue that her involvement in Dee Dee's murder cannot be ignored and question whether she deserves the freedom and happiness she now seems to be building. This division underscores the complexity of Gypsy's story, which continues to evoke strong emotions on both sides. Beyond Gypsy's personal journey, her case has left a lasting legacy. It brought national attention to the devastating impact of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a form of abuse that remains difficult to detect and even harder to prosecute. Dee Dee's manipulation and control over Gypsy highlighted how easily such abuse can be hidden under the guise of caregiving, and it prompted important conversations about the responsibilities of medical professionals, social workers, and communities in identifying and intervening in similar cases. The story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard serves as a stark reminder of the long-lasting effects of hidden abuse. It demonstrates the resilience of the human spirit, but also forces society to grapple with difficult questions about justice, accountability, and redemption. As Gypsy moves forward with her life, her story remains both a cautionary tale and a symbol of hope, proving that even in the wake of unimaginable darkness, the possibility of healing and new beginnings exists. Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story raises an unsettling question. Were her actions the desperate fight of a young woman seeking freedom, or could there have been another way? It's a tale that forces us to confront the devastating consequences of deception, control, and abuse. Gypsy's life was shaped by lies, her choices constrained by the suffocating grasp of her mother's manipulation. In the end, her quest for liberation came at an unthinkable price, leaving us to grapple with the complexities of justice and redemption. If this story left you questioning the fine line between victim and perpetrator, and the lengths one might go to escape unimaginable circumstances, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more gripping true crime stories. Together, we'll continue to explore the darkest corners of human nature and the resilience that emerges from even the most tragic circumstances.